Hello and welcome to the Let's Play for the second coursework of COMP3218. I'm Adrienne Chapman and with me is...
I'm Tom Blount.
We are lecturing on this course and today we will be doing the second batch of courseworks. Tom, would you like to tell us what we asked the students to do for this particular coursework?
Absolutely. So this coursework was all about storytelling in games. So we asked our students to make a small game prototype that told a story based on one of 3 different fables. And we were especially looking for a game with a story engine, so a way that the story affected the gameplay and the gameplay affected the story.
Excellent. Let's get going.
Alright, and this game is called Idle Kingdom. So slightly minimal title screen, but some lovely music going on in the background.
Excellent. And I love that we're just going to name our child. What child? Does I have a child?
So press P or escape to pause, E to when you're next to a person or door to interact with it, name your child. Oh, okay.
Right.
I'm kind of wondering, like, is this going to be an idle game, like sort of like Cookie Clicker or Kitten Clicker or like any of those others? Because I love those kinds of games. So I mean, name your child. I'm just going to name them Tom because I'm a narcissist. Everything should be named Tom. Okay, so we've got food, soldiers, population, popularity, and so that's a lot of stuff right off the bat.
That is a lot of stuff, yep. And I actually, given that this is the game already, we should go back to that title screen. So in our last coursework, we talked about how to integrate a tutorial so that somebody learns what they're supposed to do as they do it. And in this case, they just told us PE could have been integrated a bit better.
Yeah. Okay, so I don't know how easy this is to read because the font's a little bit small and the background is a little bit multicolored. But we've got. Hang on, let me just drop the volume just a little bit more because it is quite loud. "'Tis I, Balthasar the Great, a neighbouring king of some fantasy kingdom. May I be so kind as to ask you for a couple of men to help build my castle? I'll reimburse you." So we can either give him temporarily lose 20 population in exchange for some gold. We can say no. Or we can insult him.
Let's insult him. I'm sorry, I'm feeling kind of rude today.
Okay.
So our population just went up, and I think, did our food just go down?
Our population stayed the same, I think. I don't know.
Okay.
So this, it'd be nice if there was some kind of a, like, it highlighted it in, green or red if it went up or down or something, and there was like a plus 20.
Absolutely. I saw the numbers move, but I was not fast enough to see what actually happened.
Okay, so I spoke to this person again. They don't seem to mind that we insulted them, and now they're offering us... so they want peasants again. I don't know why it says first door. Should we just insult him again? Let's keep insulting him.
Yeah. So our population still did go up. Our popularity stayed the same, but our population is rising. Weirdly, our gold went up as well, but our food is going down.
Rather cheap, perhaps purchase some... You know what? I'll spend some gold on some food. So this actually does look like an idle game, like sort of Cookie Clicker, the kind of thing where you've just got a bunch of numbers and you've got to manage them as they go up and down. But this is kind of a really neat interface. I've not seen this kind of interface to an idle game before where you actually have to wander around and make decisions.
Yeah.
Sure, Tara. Okay, so it is... Wait, what? Hang on, this is our child, I see. Well, clearly I'm going to favour them over everyone else.
Our population is going up, our food is still going down.
Okay, let's speak to
Popularity has not moved, and neither has soldiers.
This is my wife? Gosh, she's beautiful. Yep, we'll spend money on her. Everyone else can... Nope. This is Luna, a young princess. A request. Our orphans have been exploding recently.
Uh-oh.
What? This sounds completely reasonable. You are terrible at scamming people. Goodbye. Manic cackling can be heard coming from your bedchambers. Summon the guards at once. A man appears in front of you. Don't be like that. 'Tis I, High Lock Breaker of the Fourth Wall and God of Trickery. I can sense protagonist vibes from you. Aha. We will get along well. Stab him immediately. He disappears from reality. You're pretty sure that your sword can't disintegrate people, though. I think we should test this. This is a stupid choice, but I am all for it. Ah, I'm sad that... Oh, did we actually lose a population then? I hope so.
Our population is still going up. Oh, our popularity did go down by 100 points there.
This I like. I don't remember if this is the group I was talking to about this, but there's a number of RPGs that pull this kind of shenanigans when you're talking to like super powerful god beings.
Yeah.
They just they literally remove your agency from it. So I've got, he says, say I love you, Belvedere, and I said, okay, I love you, Belvedere, I love you, Belvedere, or I love you but with an unhappy face. So, you know, managing agency to... Oh, hang on, these doors at the back are opening based on stuff that's going on down here?
Ah, yeah, that door did open.
I'm not facing you from... Okay, but angry. Okay, so these choices... Okay, we're going to get into this when we talk about the mark scheme in more detail, but these choices are... I kind of like the choices, but they don't feel like they have much meaning or impact because they just sort of happen and then we immediately make another one. There's no sort of...
There's no consequence.
Or there's no visible consequence. I guess like we might see the numbers change a little bit, but nothing. For example, when we stab a peasant, like the population number might have changed, but it was changing anyway, so it was hard to tell. Like,
yep.
My friends and other citizens farming, we need more food. Add more farmers at the second door. Wait, what? Okay, I do believe we're low on food. I'll do that right away. Okay.
Try to go out the door, can you?
Oh. Okay, so here we can send people's... Okay. But this is the second door.
Our food is rapidly running down.
It sure is. 10 people away from the jungle. Forage. What? Okay, so we can send 10 people away from the jungle. Whatever that means. We can send 10 people to the jungle. We can send one person away from the jungle or one... Okay, is this... Will this get us food? Jungle.
Let's try.
So we're adding people. So our population is going down as we apply them to this thing. Okay.
Yep.
So this whole interface really wasn't obvious from anything else.
No.
So we've got 100.
Now try to get people. It was poorly phrased, but away from the jungle. Do they bring food back with them, or does it just raise our population again?
Oh, that's an excellent question. 10 people away from the jungle. It just raises our population. So let's just put it.
Our food is absolutely zero.
Oh, good.
Have we died?
It can't get any lower.
Yeah.
And
People are starving now.
Our population's going up.
So now our popularity is going down, down, down.
That's fine. So this door is shut. And that's the door that has farmers in it, I guess. Let's talk to these people. So you... May I purchase some food off of you? Absolutely no. In fact, hang on, we have no food. So what happens if we try and sell some food? How much gold have we got? We've got loads of gold. I don't know why I'm worrying about things. Okay. Yeah, we got some gold off of him, but have no food. If our citizens want to kill us, we will all die. Cannot declare... What? Hire some more clowns. What? Okay. Somewhere there's a door where we can hire clowns, I guess. Crop rotation, excellent work. Have a bonus. I'm just a bit busy running your country. Have another bonus.
Hey, we got some food there. Where'd the food come from?
I don't know. The food's going up, though. Our popularity's massively going down. Oh, good. You want the clowns. So it feels like... So the fact that we can just make choices immediately over and over and over and over again feels like the pacing is sort of all over the shop.
Yeah.
There's no clear sort of... And I think that's partly because because they've gone for the sort of idle style of gameplay. That's all there is to do. So otherwise it'd just be sitting around and waiting for the next choice, which is like tricky to manage. I don't know who. Write down. He's breaking the fourth wall. Also, I don't like how slow we move. Oh, the peasants are revolting. Also, they killed your family. Let's go with that again. It's kind of weird that that's the only choice we make. Okay, I guess we should start hitting the mark scheme.
Yeah, we probably should. So, our the students are asked, or they're told they are going to be judged across a series of criteria that are quality, fulfilling the brief, and design elements, and then feedback. And we'll go through their sub-elements of each of them. So let's actually start with, we'll start with the easy one, bugs in information in the quality criteria. A satisfactory is the game is playable and is reasonably complex, but there are infrequent serious bugs and/or frequent minor bugs. And I feel like we're actually a little bit up from there, that the game is playable and reasonably complex. There are only minor bugs, and these are uncommon.
Yeah. Oh, okay, so there is actually some sort of pacing, I guess, because they will turn around if they have nothing to say to us. But it's not very... yeah. Anyway, sorry, yeah. Bug-wise, I mean, I haven't noticed any bugs. I think part of the problem is going to bleed into the information design in that it's not hugely clear what's going on at all times, so it's difficult to tell if things are working as intended.
It is. And so some of this comes to the complexity of the game. And so the game is absolutely playable, and there's no obvious bugs, but I'm not sure. So excellent is taking us up to reasonably complex, and I'm not entirely sure we're there yet.
Yeah. Like, in a way, like, the game itself is simple. It's just numbers moving up and down. But there are interactions between them, and, like, the complexity of the game... well, I guess the complexity of the gameplay is about managing all the different ones.
Mm-hmm. So are we halfway between good and excellent on this one?
Yeah, I think so.
Let's talk about gameplay at this point. Which is actually, we'll go first to presentation, so the information design and aesthetics. And this one we've already found a few problems with in terms of information design in that first screen where you're just telling us kind of how to move around without letting us play to move around. There's consistent graphics. There's audio. Is there effects and music or just music in this?
Just the music, I think.
Okay. There's the key information, in this case, the popularity of the food, everything else. We've already noticed there's some problems with that in terms of,
I mean, it's
small, it's up in the corner.
Like,
we're not sure for a while what's changing or how it's changing.
Like, key information is definitely shown. It could be shown better if, if something was running low, it went red, or there was some sort of clear indication as to whether these numbers are going up or down at a glance, that kind of thing. But the key information is shown.
So I think we're basically at a satisfactory level at this point, that the key information is shown. There are consistent graphics and some audio.
Yeah.
Okay. So then we're going to move on now to gameplay, which we can start through and we can say at satisfactory there is a set of mechanics and usable controls that leads to some meaningful play. Good is a set of complementary mechanics and smooth usable controls that leads to meaningful play. So in this case, your mechanics are walking around and interacting with a character where you can choose your interaction style. The part that I feel like we might be struggling with is that meaningful play, in that we have not yet figured out what our choices do to affect to have any control over our popularity, food.
I mean, I could take an educated guess that as population goes up, food goes down. When food is low, popularity goes down. When it hits a certain trigger, we game over. But yeah, and there are some sort of obvious interactions here where, temporarily lose 20 population, get this gold kind of thing. But it's not hugely obvious what some of these different interactions, how these different interactions affect these numbers. So, like when we put people in the jungle, it's not obvious whether our food's going up or down. And again, this ties back into the information design in that that sort of hinders the meaningfulness of the play. Because
Yep.
like a game like this can certainly have meaningful play because you've got to balance all of these different things, and do we spend gold to keep our wife happy at the expense of not being able to afford food or whatever? So it has the potential for it, and it
does.
might be there, but it's tricky for us to see it, is the problem.
See it. Yep. So I think we're at the satisfactory level on this one. Let's talk about fulfilling the brief. So the two aspects of fulfilling the brief are the story engine and agency. So in this case, let's start with the story engine. Looking at kind of the satisfactory good level, so satisfactory is a simple story engine that has limited integration with the game world. There are some examples where the story impacts the game world or impacted by events from the game world. Whereas good is an effective story engine that is integrated with the game world. There are some examples where the story impacts the game world and is impacted by events from the game world.
So this kind of is going to get to the crux of the issue here.
It is.
Is there a story here?
Yeah.
And is there a story based on one of our three fables?
Yeah, so it feels like they've taken one of the fables as like the skin of the game without really kind of thinking about what are the points of the fables.
Like, there definitely appears to be some sort of story, like the dialogue sort of between each of the things is progressing, but not... Like, it's difficult to sort of see where it's going or what the theme of the story is meant to be here.
Yeah. So the three stories that they were given were the wolf and the crane, the lion and the mouse, and the owl and the grasshopper. Many of them were going for the lion and the mouse of, do good for one helps later in the story. I'm not sure I'm seeing that here. I'm actually not sure which narrative they think they're going for.
Well, this is the other thing, like, have we got a branching narrative here? Are we making interesting and meaningful choices that are affecting the story?
Well, we had them add in our game notes, and so they've provided us with a narrative structure that allows, so there's a very basic branch of how you're either building relationships or collecting resources, and then you interact with the NPCs. And then you have, you're given several decisions to make, and either you learn about the demon, am I in the right? I am. You either learn about the demon horde or the Inquisition begins.
Really?
I'm not entirely sure that I've seen an Inquisition or a demon horde yet. Okay. And then there's a fight.
Are we sure this is the same game? So also just to point out, so one of the dialogue options we've just said sort of pointed out that putting people in the mine affects the popularity. Popularity goes down if there are people in the mine.
Right.
So maybe that's why... So I guess that makes gold go up, and soldiers go up. I guess the soldiers are going to be important for fighting these demons, or something?
Guess, if there's an Inquisition or a demon horde. So it's interesting to me at this point because they do have some narrative structure in their grand design that they presented to us in the course notes, but we have not seen any of this in the game. And there could be some argument that we're not playing the game correctly, but that's not really an argument given that there is, if there's a correct or an incorrect, then it's up to the developers to help us, to guide us into the where they want us to go in the play. So let's actually go back and talk a little bit about that story engine. So in terms of story elements, I kind of feel like we might be all the way down in some support for story elements in the game, but no real story engine. So the story has no real impact on the game. No, we're not. The story does have impact on the game world.
So, like, choices in dialogue like this definitely have an effect on the game. The game world is perhaps, like, limited, but it's having a sort of mechanic. So I could not. I like this character a lot. It's like I refuse, not because I want to, but because I hate you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's possibly that there's a basic story engine with poor integration of the game world. So there's I think the part here is the problem is that there's a difference between the story impact on the game world and events in the game world, right? So you are impacting the game by the events that the choices that you're making, but that doesn't actually change the story at all right now, or we haven't seen the story change.
Yeah.
All right, so given that, let's talk about agency. So in agency, we're looking for an interactive story with several branching points and some interesting choices. And this is another one that I'm actually struggling with quite a bit in that in the branching structure that they've given us, there are several decisions to make, and based on those decisions, either the Inquisition begins, and then there's another series of sub-choices, or we learn about the Demon Horde. And then there's a check across the characters, and then we fight them, or fight the Demon Horde. So, in this case, I mean, according to the narrative, according to the narrative plan, there is an interactive story with branching points.
So there is.
But I'm not seeing any agency for you as the player.
So I'll just interject there. So there are definitely. So there's definitely sort of a number of narrative threads that seem to be sort of weaved through some of these different conversations. So I think we've just discovered that our wife is having an affair with a foreign king and some other stuff, and we have some decisions to make from it. So we can either confront our wife, we can ignore it, we can confront the other king, we can commit suicide, which seems an odd choice to just throw in there in the middle of a game. But so there are it almost puts me in mind of a game like Papers, Please, where you have a job to do, and it's a fairly sort of menial or sort of bureaucratic, just sort of mundane job. And as you're sort of doing that, you get these little sort of snippets of stories that are going on throughout the world.
Yes.
Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but that's the vibe I'm getting from this. So I think there is definitely some agency. The impact of that agency isn't necessarily hugely apparent, and so this is something we talked about a few times already.
So possibly we're at an interactive story with some branching points, but few interesting choices.
I guess that's sort of the issue. Because it seems like there's a number of different sort of sub-stories that are going on, but we're not necessarily hugely involved in them. It's not clear to see where there are big branching points or things like that. I think that some of the choices are quite interesting. So the choices are certainly fun. Whether they're sort of meaningfully impactful choices, I don't know. I think actually no. I'm going to take it back. I'm going to say the choices are interesting. For example, whether you confront your wife about an affair, whether you play along with the god of trickery himself, whether you sort of believe or disbelieve this person who keeps asking you for resources. I think there are actually a number of interesting choices to make. It's just whether they have a huge impact on the. Yeah, I guess it's not obvious how those branches sort of branch out and then join again.
Okay, so how about this then? So because we split this in the marking criteria, so agency is just about the branching points with interesting choices. And we've already kind of talked about how we're having trouble with the impact of the choices. That came up in Story Engine. But in agency, we can talk about an interactive story with several branching points and some interesting choices. And I think that kind of describes what you're feeling right now as you play. All right. Let's talk about the design element in this. Within this category, we have poetics and techniques. So let's talk about the poetics. So starting at like a past level is narrative and gameplay have some conflicts. Some of the mechanics go against the themes of the story. So this is where we're actually asking them to think about the theme of the story that they've chosen, and whether the gameplay or the mechanics and the narrative all work together into a common direction or an interesting direction. Narrative and gameplay do not interfere with one another, but the key mechanics have little to do with the themes of the story. I actually don't think they're there. I think we might even be further up. So narrative and gameplay complement one another as the key mechanics are keeping with the themes of the story.
I'm not sure it fully reaches that, just because... I guess the mechanics of actually sort of making those choices, like, again, I'm still not hugely clear on the theme that they were going for, other than like maybe it's about doing good deeds and them sort of coming back, but it's not really apparent from what's happening.
Yep. So I'm going to actually place this about halfway between those two, in that they're definitely kind of the narrative and gameplay so far feel like they are complementing each other fairly well with the key mechanics, but we're not sure about that theme of the story, and that's not very clear. So let's talk about the techniques, and in this case we're looking at game rating techniques, pacing, how they're delivering the information. So in this case, the pacing unclear or flat, partially successful attempt to use at least one game writing technique, in this case dialogues.
So I will say there is some attempt at pacing.
Okay.
Because so again, it's not necessarily brought across hugely obviously, but sort of these different dialogue conversations that we're having, they start off with just, sort of managing all of these different numbers, and then they sort of turn into things like your wife is having an affair or whatever, and it escalates until there is an army of demons approaching, you must gather this number of soldiers.
Okay.
So there is
ascending pacing. Yeah. Excellent. And uses one game rating technique, so that actually places us firmly in the next category up.
Like it doesn't necessarily. Yeah, it's the sort of like final climactic peak that, like, it kind of has, in that there's a demon army happening. Part of the problem is because we're just in one room talking to a bunch of advisors, we're very detached from it. I mean, you could argue that that's by design and lends to the theme, but maybe because they just didn't want to draw 400 demons, but.
So we also ask them to give us our feedback, or we give them feedback, and we ask them to reflect on that feedback and give us a response. So the feedback they received was that their initial idea of an idle game may not be possible for the examiners to play, because we have a limited amount of time, and I think we're actually seeing elements of that actually in our conversation about this game. Furthermore, the examiners were interested to see how we would adapt the narrative to an idle game, and that we should make sure that the narrative is not hampered by the game. So after receiving this, they made some alterations to the game and how it fit in the coursework. First, they increased the speed at which the player gained materials and could chat with the NPCs to allow the game's main story to be experienced in a shorter time frame. So it's interesting because they made that adjustment, and even you noticed earlier on as you were playing that, well, I could just go back and talk to the same characters over and over. So while also keeping the idle element they wish to implement. There are still branching storylines that affect the outcome of the game and can lead to different endings depending on the player's choices.
So I was about to say we got that ending screen, and it looks like, so there are a number of different paragraphs, and I'm assuming each of those paragraphs changes depending on how we talk to each of these characters, which is a nice touch. I really like that kind of thing where firstly you get an epilogue sort of talking about the consequences of your choices, but also where there's some variety in it. So we've got in their game notes, hopefully they've handed in a little diagram of their story structure.
They have indeed.
And hopefully it mentions something in there that supports my assumption there.
So it's interesting, their narrative structure is, it exists in that You can, have building relationships. It is not detailed enough. So for example, it does not contain the story arcs of if you interact with your wife in a certain way, then the story will drift in this way, or it opens up these resources. So from the narrative diagram itself, that I cannot tell you.
Fair enough. I'm gonna just try and the problem is it's partly because of the sort of the fact that it's an idle game. It'll take a while to get through it again, so I don't know whether I'll get to see the ending screen if I do my best to annoy everyone, but still.
Yep. So in this case, I actually think that the feedback was articulated and reasonable changes have been successfully made. I mean, I think based on where they were likely started, this is as successful as they were going to get from that feedback.
Yeah. Okay, so that brings us to the end of this game, yes?
Yes, it does.
Excellent. All right, let's
join us for the next.
Okay, and this is our next game, and it is called... I'm not actually sure from the title screen. What do the game notes say?
Actually, I'm not sure.
Okay, well, let's just jump right into it and see what happens.
Card Kingdom. Card Kingdom it is.
Well, there were certainly some cards there, and apparently we've got a kingdom, so we're off to a good start. It's an honor to... Oh no, I didn't read that. Something king. We've received a number of requests from refugees fleeing the war. We only have the resources to allow 2 per day. As king, you must decide who is accepted and who gets cast away. Okay, so a little sort of like introduction. Calling it a cinematic might be generous, but they've got that sort of whole sort of storytelling process. We've got a little inbuilt tutorial, I guess. So click on a villager card to read its description. Decide if you'd like to accept it. Choose wisely. So this is what a villager card looks like, I guess. Day 1. Dawn of the first day. Here's our table. Here are the cards. So we've got Jaska or Yaska, who's got incredible hair. Oh, we've got some lovely music as well. I'm just going to turn down slightly. There we go. Sort of I guess, tavern-style music. I don't know. Something medieval.
Do you think his brother is really called Brain the Brute, or is it Brian the Brute? Like, are we going to get a brother who's really, really smart and also brute, or are we...
So I was chatting with them when they were developing this, and it was a typo that they decided to stick with.
I see. All right. So if you not kill him, but if could we look at another card?
Yep. So we got Artemis. So there are certain bits of this text that are highlighted, and I can only assume that they're going to be important. So I assume on day 2 we're going to get a different set of people, and some of them are going to know these people, and they're going to be better disposed to us if we've accepted them. So his cousin's a vigilante. You want a job, you're a blacksmith. You are Minister Paul, you're terribly sorry to disturb you, you got lost travelling home, you're escorting the noble King Arthur. Yeah, sure, whatever. You've been severely wounded. I'm going to go for Yaska, because I like his hair, and Artemis, just because. So, 2 of those cards get put on our deck, 2 of those cards get put over here on a different deck. I'm sure that won't matter at all. Who have we got over here? So we've got Farquaad from the east. I do not go near your tiny pathetic little kingdoms. Send your best workers to fix... Oh, so you were the person that was friends with this person over here, right?
Yeah.
But I really don't like... So I feel like we should pick him, because we've picked the person that will put in a good word for us. But also, screw him.
Yeah.
Don't judge me by the blood on my clothes. A murderer broke into my son needs a healer and I am too injured to carry him. Please help. We've got a Count from the south, old friend of her father's. Frankly, it is his own fault he passed away. Well, you're not getting in my castle now. You cannot go around helping everyone you see. Look at your once mighty kingdom. Anyway, will you help me? Well, that's made one choice easy. Please be nice. I want to accept some nice people. You're the valiant vigilante who I should have accepted because of you. Yeah, okay. Alright, so I'm going to accept you because you're the only person that seems half decent, and you're covered in blood, so...
Let's do Sandoran.
Yeah.
Sorry, Dinian, sorry.
So I thought this might happen. So I tried accepting him, but because we didn't help the blacksmith, he doesn't come with us, so he just goes over there. So we don't get to choose them. God. Alright, so I'll take you, even though... Because at least we took the correct person, so it's... so we get some sort of bonus there. So what have we got over here? We've got Vicar Baron, you were attacked by bandits, please help. A healer from some tribe. Okay. You are a free knight. And you are the amazing Kadabra, Grand Mage from the south, not worthy of being... Why is everyone so mean to the person they want to lay? I've been robbed and am now reduced. Can you spare some guards to make... Oh god, you can get out. I'm just gonna take in the random peasants. We're gonna build a dictatorship of the proletariat or something. I don't know. Yeah, we'll take you as well. Whatever. Let's keep going. Received terrible news. The refugees we rejected have joined each other and are trying to overthrow our kingdom. Sound the alarm. Tell our new visitors what has happened. Okay. Okay, so now they have an attack and a health. Welcome we with open arms. We'll fight beside you. Wonderful. You'll assist. You're going to war and need my troops. I do not indulge in such matters. However, I've just learned a new +2 attack spell. Okay, so he gives all of our people +2 attack, I guess. Okay. We saved you. Okay, we've got you as well, and we've got you. So we didn't see your brother at all, right?
No.
So I think that is because there are more characters in the deck that you get to see, so you have a random chance of not seeing any.
Yep.
However, that feels kind of a cheat when you get certain characters like this that specifically reference another one. Which is kind of a shame.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's... Oh, you were horrible, so if I do this... Oh no, he was tragically killed in battle. Who else have we got? So... None of them have, like, especially a lot of health. So I can do that, and I can do that, and that. That. Oh, whoops. Oh no. I accidentally killed him. Right. Hooray, we won with nothing but 2 scrappy peasants left.
Whoa!
The people you helped gave us enough power to win the battle. It reminds me of a story the elders used to tell about a lion and a mouse. Okay, good. It's nice that they were signposting that, because I was a little bit unsure about...
I wasn't sure exactly where we were going. Okay. So, now that we've kind of seen the game,
yeah,
we should definitely pull up the marking criteria at this point. Let's talk about bugs. I think that the game is playable, reasonably complex, and there are only minor bugs, and these are uncommon. Like, we're definitely up in there.
Yep.
I'm not sure we push much further up in the marking criteria because of the complexity issue again.
I don't know. I think there's... Yeah, I don't know. Like, it's reasonably complex. You've got, you got, like, choosing from the cards that gets shuffled into a deck. You've got random cards being drawn from the deck. You've got the little battle thing at the end. Like, I guess they could have made more of that. But, like, what they've got is, like, reasonably complex, yeah.
I think is about right, isn't it? Okay, so... oops. Then we can talk about... let's talk about presentations, the information design and aesthetics. So... up in the good category is key information is shown clearly, graphics are consistent, appropriate use of audio, effects and music. In this case, I actually think they've done a very good job actually about their information design and the aesthetics. So I'm wondering, are we pushing up into excellence, or are we somewhere approaching excellence? So excellent in this case is key information is shown clearly, consistent and appealing graphics, good use of audio. And I think
I'd be inclined to say that it's pretty good. There's like the nice background music. There's sort of noises as you get dealt cards and things like that. The information is shown very clearly. Like it's an interesting presentation representing everybody as sort of cards in a deck. Obviously, they've been inspired by other sort of deck building games and things like that, but it's really good. We've got a picture, we've got a name, we've got some text. The important text is highlighted. We've got the key numbers. I think it works really well.
I do too. So now we can talk about the gameplay, the mechanics and controls. So in this case, so do we have a set of mechanics or a set of complementary mechanics?
I
actually think we have complementary mechanics in this case. So
I'm inclined to say we do. I think they could have done a lot more with it. But again, small game prototype sort of showcasing a number of techniques. I think it works quite well. So first we have the sort of drafting set of mechanics where we sort of pick different things. There's different interactions between different cards. If we pick one card, or rather if we don't pick one card, then that sort of sets up an interaction later on with another one. And then that affects how this works out. Different cards buff different cards, and then we've got the little battle thing. Yeah, I think this actually works quite nicely. It's a little showcase of mechanics.
So then the question becomes, are we at a set of complementary mechanics, or are we at a wide set of complementary mechanics?
I mean, there's definitely scope for doing more, for widening the set further. I think it might be sort of edging towards it, even if it doesn't meet it fully. What do you think?
I agree. I actually think we're definitely, I don't think we're actually all the way up at a wide set, but I actually feel that, given that there's two different phases of the game and you kind of have to think through and you learn some of that drafting while you're doing it, it feels like we're getting close to a wider set.
Yeah, so for example, this battle bit here, I don't have to think a lot to sort of complete it. I just sort of go drag and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
But I will also say that the part of this is that in that drag, it is smooth and usable controls.
It absolutely is, yeah.
And I think that it has led to enjoyable and meaningful play in this case, as you kind of think through who your deck is going to contain. So I don't think we're all the way up into the excellent category, but we're definitely drifting into that. We're definitely above the one before it. So let's talk about the story engine in this game.
So this is the bit that worries me a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I think the gameplay is innovative, it's interesting. There is definitely a story that's being told. Okay, so does the narrative affect the gameplay? Yes, because if you make certain choices when you're drafting these things, again, it's one of these games where the sort of, I guess, the narrative choices are directly tied to, if you like, the gameplay choices. It's almost like we've got the sort of narrative phase and then the gameplay phase afterwards. So choices we make here affect the stats of our cards afterwards and what cards we're allowed to draft. So I would say yes, that it definitely goes that way.
It does. Now, could we? I mean, if you were to choose everybody into your country, your little kingdom, that were effectively the mice, right? So if you chose nobody but the mice in each hand, would you have a reasonable coming out on top? And if
I think so.
I think so as well.
But I guess it's more a case of, it's not like things that we do in the gameplay sort of are reflected in the story. Again, it's kind of the gameplay and story are kind of tightly linked in so much as the story is told entirely through sort of what cards you're allowed to draft.
Yeah.
So, for example, if I... is it a case of the gameplay is affecting the story if I try and pick a card and then we get a bit of... I almost think it kind of is. It's not necessarily as fully realised as it could be, but for example, if I try and draft a card and we get a bit of extra story dialogue telling us why they hate that decision and they're going to leave and join the others...
I like this guy's mustache.
So, is this section also about agency and branching and things like that?
we will, but let's talk about, but they are separate, exactly. So on the story engine side.
So I think it definitely goes one way. I think it goes the other way in a slightly more limited extent, but there's definitely sort of evidence of it.
Okay, so an effective story engine that is integrated with the game world. There are examples where the story impacts the game world and is impacted by events from the game world. Are we there, or are we a little bit below it, or are we a whole drop below that? So the drop below that is a simple story engine that has limited integration with the game world. There are some examples where the story impacts the game world or is impacted by events from the game world.
So I think perhaps we're halfway between the two.
I have a feeling we are as well. Okay, so let's talk next about
so agency and branching and
exactly.
So are there branch? So this is the kind of thing that, again, there are kind of snippets of story, but it doesn't feel like a branching story to me.
Yes. Interestingly, in the narrative structure that they have, they've in some way kind of confused the flow of the game, right? The mechanics and the drafting and then the playing, or the drafting and then the battle with a narrative structure. So So in terms of kind of the narrative structure that they provided, it is in some way kind of overloaded with. So they noticed that if you have a character that's angry with you, then they'll go join the enemy, and then if you prepare for kindness, if you showed kindness helping those in the most need, you win, as those characters will provide you with better stats. Whereas if you went for the other characters, they don't have good stats.
I still don't think we've seen this guy's brother yet. I'm really curious to see that.
But in this case, it does, yeah, I guess, I mean, it is an interactive story with several branching points and some interesting choices. The question becomes, is it an interactive story with several branching points, some interesting choices, and a few attempts to manage player agency? I don't think we're there in any way managing player agency at this point. It's just interesting choices and an interactive story with branching points.
I should probably try losing on purpose just to see what happens. Because it feels like that's kind of, if you like, the main story branch is just whether you win or lose, and that's...
Yes.
So actually, the story structure that they handed in as part of their game notes, what sort of branches, I guess, do they identify in their game?
So we talked through some of them. So as I said, it's a bit of a mix in terms of like what's happening. So accepting a card. So first it spawns characters, and then you accept a card. And then, depending on whether you accept or not, if a character is angry with you, then they will join the enemy. If it joins your side, and then it'll go through. And if more than 3 rounds are done, then the characters you reject will attack you. And as you prepare for battle, you basically there's an assessment that's made that. Let's see, there isn't actually a branch point. It seems that if you win, if the characters provide you better, so if you've shown more kindness, then you're more than likely to win because the stats will be better.
See, I don't know about that. I've started just sort of picking characters at random, and I haven't really noticed any. I haven't noticed any of the fights being easier or harder.
Right.
It's actually going to be really difficult to lose on purpose now that I've got this muscle. I've got the brute.
talk about the poetics. So, narrative and gameplay do not interfere with one another, but the key mechanics have little to do with the themes of the story. That's not quite right. I think the themes of the story are actually in very nice keeping with the gameplay at this point. If anything, I think the narrative might be just a little bit weak.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's the story that they're telling, like you say, is there's not a lot of story. Like, there's not a sort of... I guess it's going back to some of the sort of stuff in the lectures. There's no clear sort of arc. There's no sort of like Act 1, Act 2, Act 3 kind of structure.
Yep.
There's little snippets of different stories of different characters and things like that, which kind of hinders the story they're telling overall. But each of those little snippets and interactions does kind of have that theme that they're going for.
Yep. So I don't. So on the one hand, I don't think that they're at the level of narrative and gameplay do not interfere with one another, but with the key mechanics have little to do with the themes of the story. And on the other hand, I don't think they're all the way up at narrative and gameplay complement one another, as the key mechanics are in keeping with the themes of the story. And in that case, it's because the themes of the story are actually very nicely done with the gameplay, but the narrative is weak. So I kind of feel we're kind of between those two in this case.
Yeah. Just gonna go with you,
and then in techniques is kind of getting closer to what you were just talking about, Tom, in that, so now we're talking about the pacing and we're talking about game writing techniques. So in this case, we've seen two game writing techniques, right? We've seen cutscenes and we've seen the cards. I don't know. I'm not sure what I want to class them as. But the pacing is unclear, or the pacing is flat.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because more than one game rating technique gets them up to the good, but a flat or unclear pacing is down in the pass level, which might just mean that we're kind of seeing something that's satisfactory, because it does have some really nice examples of the narrative, or some of the writing techniques, but not a great pacing.
I managed to lose on purpose.
Good job. So in the feedback that they've provided to us, initially we planned a similar game where the king was in charge of accepting or denying visitors, as well as various tasks in a kingdom, such as trade deals and building upgrades. Accepting visitors used the kingdom's resources, but allowed a great army power. So the feedback's positive, with the main issue being to restrict the scope of the project to ensure they complete it in time. The other piece was to use show, not tell, to demonstrate the kingdom's stats. For example, changing the size of a farm building instead of just showing a number with the farm level on a GUI. So in their initial idea, they approached the show, not tell by using minimal stats, with all the user interface being shown as 3D on the virtual table. However, they realized it had a variety of problems, being that there were many mechanics at play, and if they focused on one, they had the risk of the gameplay very boring. So they went to a more focused mechanic of identifying which visitor is accepted.
Okay. So I think their scoping thing, like, I think sort of some of those additional mechanics, would have been nice and would have sort of like fleshed out some of the gameplay. But I think certainly, with the time pressure and sort of the small scope that we were aiming for, I think that was probably the right decision to sort of cut out any extraneous bits. It's better to have something that's like fully polished than has a bunch of half-finished mechanics in it. So I think that was probably the right call.
I think we're basically at feedback was articulated and reasonable changes have been successfully made.
Yeah, that sounds about right. So yeah, I think overall, like, this is like a really nice game. It does like a bunch of sort of like interesting things. It tries to tell the story in an interesting way. It doesn't necessarily hit all of the points that we were looking for, but there's certainly a lot of potential here for it.
Absolutely. Time to go on to our next game.
Right, let's move on. Okay, our next game seems to be Dragon's Knight. So we've got a really nice title screen here. We've got the title, a lovely background, some lovely music as well. Let's hit start and see where we go from here. Okay, got an integrated tutorial as well. Fantastic. So move with WSD or the arrow keys. Controls feel a little bit odd. I think that's because we're moving sort of between tiles rather than moving freely. Walk up to and click on any NPC to chat. Nice little dialogue things, a nice little noise as we talk to them. The knight bleeds out onto the stone pathway. Oh, okay. They sent you. But you're a wanderer, not worthy enough to be a knight. Have we no more? Well, I was about to help you, but you know what?
But you're being mean.
This is no place for you. The dragon is undefeated, and the knights in the villages are too weak to face him. Humanity is doomed. Alright, bye. Step into the cave. Best of luck. Okay. So, I feel like we're starting in medias res a bit here. I don't know who we are or what we're doing, but we certainly appear to be doing stuff. Can't click on you yet. Yeah, so we're moving from tile to tile, which feels very odd in a sort of not turn-based game. May the 9 give you strength, lone wanderer. Okie dokie. Can't explore back here, so I guess we just go straight into the cave. Head back down to leave the cave. Okay, bye. I think we probably have to go into the cave still. Okay, we've got some fire. Yeah, so I think we just have to wander around the cave and see what we see. Ah, I see a dragon.
You see a dragon!
I think it's safe to say the pacing has ascended. Let's just walk around you for a minute. And hello. Princess, you cannot face him alone. He is wicked, he is cruel, he has scorched the bodies of all of your brothers who have come before. Put not your trust in him, wanderer, heed these words. I feel like I know which fable we might be going.
Dragon. I feel like he's a misunderstood dragon.
I feel the dragon is going to be very flattering. You will not take her, the girl is mine, but I will be generous. Surrender now and I will let you go. Continue in your stubborn vow and your princess and your entire city will know the wrath of... I'm kind of liking the writing, to be honest. It's it's a little bit hammy, but it's good. It's building an atmosphere. Attack the dragon. I mean,
can we just walk away? I don't want to do either yet.
I mean, I'm just good. Let's see what happens when we attack.
Let's attack.
Oh, okay. So we've got like turn-based RPG kind of thing. First, click on what type of attack you want to use. Magic attacks cost mana, but go through a target's defense. Okay. Then click on the enemy that you want to attack from this menu. The enemy will take damage. Again, integrated tutorial. Really, really nice. I'm loving how it's sort of stepping us through like the important bit. I should have probably read that instead of talking. Did 0. Your sword is useless against me, hero. My hide is too thick. So if we use magic, your magic is weak. It barely even leaves a scratch. The dragon's not doing anything. This worries me. I tire of this.
Well, not burned to a cinder yet.
You may have jinxed it. Yep, there we go. So is this cutscene? Cannot work. Thank you for letting us know. It's maybe an interesting way to do it. You are nothing but a weak. Blah blah blah. So you need to retrieve 3 orbs of immortality. The ages of man. Honestly, kind of like this as a storytelling technique. Set us up with a big fight. You know. Show us how strong the dragon is. Show us how weak we are in comparison to it. Weak and pathetic
we are, yep.
That actually is really nice. I like that as a technique. Like, set up... So we kind of... Again, we start in medias res, but we get here, we immediately find out what we're meant to be doing, and then we get that whole, I guess, second set of arc and stuff that we're setting up for. Okay. Step into the cave, no thank you. So that's not changed based on our dialogue, unfortunately. Oh, we've got a little village down here. We've got an orc. The inn is to the south, the chief is waiting for you, there's a village to the west, the next orb will be there. Okay, this is suddenly a lot more,
yeah!
like there's a lot more to this than I went in this expecting.
And it's nice now because we know what our aim is at this point. We're not wandering blind, talking to characters, going, I don't know, what am I supposed to be learning at this point?
Yeah.
Did we learn anything from them?
No. But maybe it would have been nice if they'd have just said, oh, hi, you were just trying to fight the dragon, were you? Okay, so we've been told to go to the inn. Here's the inn. That's nice. Okay. Please help him. What? Okay. Hello. That pendant around your neck. You're not the first one, but I'm tired of fighting off you knights. What do you mean fighting off you knights? Join me and liberate this village of the orc scum. No. Attack the knight also. I don't feel like...
I don't want to surrender, but I don't want to attack him either.
Like, surrendering doesn't feel like
the right choice.
The right... Like, it should say, you know, join him or whatever.
Yeah, or walk away.
I'm gonna attack him, see what happens. I kind of like the interface as well. This really neat. Sort of skipping ahead to information design and stuff. It's like, you know,
yep.
HP, mana, like it's all very clear what's going on.
I mean, we've easily seen three different narrative styles, you know, game writing styles at this point. Oh no! You killed him! There's a blood splat! What have you done?
I mean, he wanted to exterminate an entire race of people. It seemed only fair.
Yes.
And we got an orb out of it, so you know.
The blood splat feels just a little bit, I don't know.
Looks like the dragon has chosen a worthy bag of meat. Go ask my men for direct. And that is true, we are collecting a bunch of orbs. Oh, why is there blood over here now?
Did you kill him too?
No, I don't.
I can't not watch for half a second.
Like, I don't want to be working for the dragon, but it feels like the best way to defeat the dragon is to
help everyone else.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, are the orcs good? Are they not? I am unsure.
I don't know. We're back at the inn again.
So I guess we need to go to the west. So yeah, I guess we should take a look at the mark scheme and sort of start stacking things up.
Yes, we probably should. I got pulled into the game and the wonderful narrative storyline going on here.
Oh, that's a good sign, isn't
it?
So
let's start as bugs. I think we're easily in the game as playable and reasonably complex. There are only minor bugs, and these are uncommon.
I
might almost think, given the number of ways that you interact, that the game is playable and complex, and there are no obvious bugs.
Yeah, I think so. We've got combat systems. We've got a bunch of.
As we said, we've already seen a few kind of different styles of narrative information being shown, or narrative styles being used. So let's go now up into the information display, or the presentation. So information design and aesthetics.
Oh, this is a bit... Sorry.
We've been really happy with this one, haven't we?
Yeah, so the aesthetics are really nice. The sound design, we've got sort of a good sort of music track in the background. We've got little noises when we interact with things.
Okay. So excellent is key information is shown clearly, consistent, and appealing graphics, good use of audio, effects, or music.
Yeah, I think we're easily there.
I think so too, especially as I said, like they've actually shown us a variety of different scenes and ways of interacting with the players. So gameplay. So are we at a set of complementary mechanics? Are we at a wide set of complementary mechanics? Or are we at, are we at a set of mechanics as of complementary mechanics, or a wide set of complementary mechanics?
So right
at this point,
now,
go ahead.
Yeah, it feels like we've got a set of mechanics.
I agree.
I don't know if the combat is going to change or evolve or anything like that as we sort of progress in power, but right now it's how shall I phrase this? It's sort of nice and clean and sort of simple to understand, let's say, but also like relatively simple. It's mostly just press the attack button.
Yep.
Press the attack button, press the attack button. Also, I'm just going to jump in and sort of say, like, this bit, like, I'm not sure whether I should call it, you know, like, innovative scope management or just a bit lazy. Just having a copy paste of a different area in the game and changing the bad guy's name.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, actually, what this is it's the dueling ground. So basically, you know, it's part of the story. There's a dueling ground everybody has to go to. There you go.
Oh yeah, but it's like the exact same the exact same characters in both parts.
Yep. So I think I agree. There's smooth, usable controls, and you're enjoying the play. There's meaningful play there. So let's talk about the story engine in this case. So in this case, the question is, are we at the and or the or? So we're looking for examples where the story impacts the game world and the story is also impacted by events from the game world.
Okay, so has gameplay affected this? So I mean, I guess we have the choice of whether we fight the...
Are you fighting the knights or you're going to surrender to them, right?
I feel like I may have made the evil choices inadvertently here. Kill the knight. Okay, I guess we're doing an evil playthrough.
It's okay. Evil playthrough's fine.
If this guy is called John, I'm going to do a tiny scream.
That was incredibly tiny scream.
Okay, so yeah, we've got these gameplay choices. Do we decide to attack the knight or the...
or surrender to them
the
in some way.
entire village, yeah.
Yep.
I guess I should have made a different choice just to sort of see the impact there, because if it's just a case of we're just fighting a hobgoblin instead of a knight, blimey, that did a lot of damage. I may be about to die. Not sure how we get past this then. So what effects do they have on the story? And I guess this will become apparent on sort of the ending, right?
Yep. So actually, why don't we kind of move over this one for a few while we gather some more information on that. So we're going to be talking about agency at this point, an interactive story with several branching points and some interesting choices. So I'm going to take a look at the narrative diagram that they provided to us. So in this case, the player is sent on a quest by the dragon. The player decides whether to help the first town, the second town, the third town, and depending on the choice, the player either gets an orb or gets a party member. So you start gathering your own horde.
I see.
And you either come back to the dragon with a set of orbs or a larger party or some mix of the both. And then the player fights the dragon and any minion that's still alive.
Okay.
And then depending on, I'm assuming, how many orbs or members of the party gets the princess, wins but doesn't get the princess, or loses everything. And in the notes provided, it doesn't actually say whether we should be aiming for the orbs or if we should be aiming for the party members.
Given that, yeah, I mean, everyone seems to want to exterminate everyone else, which doesn't sound great, but hey, that seems to be just the way things are sometimes. So we've got, I mean, like, in a way, that's kind of nice, like, sort of morally grey stuff.
Yes.
So yeah, I guess, like, so there is definitely an example of it affecting the gameplay, because either we fight one very strong person, or we get a party member and fight three relatively weaker things. So it's sort of changing the pace of the overall gameplay.
Yep. So good in this case is an interactive story with several branching points, some interesting choices, and a few attempts to manage player agency, for example, using topology, narrative patterns, illusion of choice, etc. And in this case, I mean, you just mentioned it, right? There are these gray areas. I'm honestly not sure which way we should go at this point, and how these decisions in the village ultimately affect the dragon.
And I'll also say, sort of like in terms of just sort of managing like physical agency and stuff like that, so for example, just there we came through a passage that was blocked previously by somebody standing there, so like that's kind of nice. They like the literal sort of level is gated by sort of the state we are in the story, which is a good example of sort of how they've tried to manage the agency and where the player can go.
Yep.
Life.
So I feel like we're very solidly in that category, and we can look along now to the poetics of this. So how the narrative and gameplay complement each other and the mechanics with the themes of the story. In this case, it does very much feel I honestly can't tell you which of these stories this is. Is this Lion and the Mouse? Is this
I
wow,
think
that
it might
looks
be
like it's on fire.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it might be the crane and the...
Yes, the crane and the
about
the
the
other
sort
one.
of, like the dragon sort of... It doesn't really
The wolf,
flatter us.
the wolf
But...
and the crane. It's the wolf and the crane, isn't it?
Okay, so I guess we've got a checkpoint here where we died. So this kind of ties back into, I guess, some of the overall gameplay. Like, for example, there I ended up siding with the Fire Knight just because I couldn't seem to beat him, and it's not like there were many other options I could have taken, because it's just like I pressed attack as many times as I could and then died.
Yeah.
So maybe some of the balance is a little bit off.
We'll talk about that, I think, a little bit in techniques, maybe.
So I've also just noticed something that... So I assumed that all of these things were like, torches lighting up the village. But no, I think the orcs are just burning the town down. I assumed this was like the orc village. Okay.
Yeah. So
okay.
That's kind of interesting. So there are consequences.
So it's like environmental... Oh, there's an orc just sat in here, so it's not hugely
just hanging
clear.
out, lots of fire.
But they have made an attempt at like environmental storytelling as well, so...
So
nice.
In this case, I think that actually plays quite nicely into kind of the poetics here, right? So the narrative and gameplay complement one another. So is it that the narrative and the gameplay complement one another as the key mechanics are in keeping with the themes of the story? Or narrative and gameplay support one another as the mechanics emphasize the themes of the story? Or is it somewhere in between the two?
Yeah, I'm sort of struggling a bit to sort of see some... Like, I guess we look sort of purely at the sort of gameplay mechanics, the sort of like turn-based RPG kind of style stuff. There's not a lot in there that sort of, supports the themes that they're going for. Gathering a party to, like, attack them maybe does. But again, it's not hugely clear... to me, sort of, that aspect of it.
Okay.
So I don't think it directly hinders it, but I'm not sure it fully supports it.
So I think we're basically in the complement one another phase. All right, and let's talk then about the techniques. So this is about the pacing and the number of game rating techniques. So in this case, we've seen dialogues, we've seen cutscenes.
Dialogues, cutscenes, sort of in medias res, use of not lepsis, but that whole sort of like putting us in the middle of the action. We've got the environmental storytelling of like towns being on fire and stuff when we arrive, or when we leave, I guess. Techniques wise, I think they've done a really, really good job, and in terms of sort of structure and pacing as well. Like you say, we start off, we sort of get thrust into the middle of the action, we get sort of set up with that really nice sort of hook to draw us in, that early you can't win fight that then gives us a clear goal for the rest of it. we've got the sort of 3 clear stops that we have to make on the way, and then the final climax of the. I think they've done a really, really good job in terms of that.
Okay, so are we at? So a good is ascending pacing with a clear final peak and use of more than one game writing technique, which we've got. Or ascending pacing with more than one peak and appropriate and consistent use of more than one. I think we're actually up at excellent, aren't we?
I think we're easily there.
Yeah.
Just for the sake of argument, what would Prizeworthy be?
Prizeworthy at this point would be ascending pacing with multiple peaks and sophisticated and novel use of several game writing techniques. So I actually think that it is sophisticated use of those game writing techniques.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I'm seeing the multiple peaks.
I mean, you could argue that there's sort of like the peak of each sort of fight with the knight or the orcs and things in each village, but the thing is, I don't think there's enough sort of what do you call it, sort of downtime, sort of like talking to other villagers, sort of seeing what's going on in the village, sort of, to really emphasize each of those peaks.
Yeah, because they have to have in a short demo. Sure. However, I do agree. So I'm actually gonna say we're gonna bump them in the category between excellent and prizeworthy on this one.
Yeah, I think that's what I would do.
Okay, then let's take a look at their feedback. Sorry. So the feedback for this that they were given. They were trying to do the Lion and the Mouse and the Wolf and the Crane originally, and the lecturers were worried that trying to do them both would be difficult for the players to tell. So they decided to switch only on the Lion and the Mouse. Interesting. We thought it was the Crane and the Wolf.
I can
other pieces of feedback.
I can see why. Yeah, I can see the influence behind the Lion and Mouse for this, because you help somebody and then it comes back to repay you. I think the way it's sort of framed in some of the interactions with like the knights, they don't. I didn't feel inclined to help them is the problem, just because of the way they sort of characterized some of the like, particularly like the knight right at the start, sort of, I guess, put me against them from the start.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think some of it too was that surrender, right? I mean, it could even be, would you help me?
Yeah, that's it. And sort of characterize it, like, because, like I say, I assumed, we'd gone into an orc village and the knight was just trying to murder everyone there. It's not. If they'd have set it up a bit more so that it was, this village is under attack, please help me. Like that.
Yep. So then the other choices, it wasn't clear what the player choices did, and they didn't, and so other didn't feel like they knew the consequences of the action, so they added NPC dialogue, and they were trying not to tell the player the full consequences, but to give some understanding of what each orb would do and what party members could do. They changed some text to make sure the player could tell the monsters were just evil, although obviously you were really worried about those orcs, so maybe they didn't quite get all the way there.
Yep, I didn't notice that. But...
And then they did actually do some play testing, so and it turned out that making a turn-based RPG was an important aspect of the game, and so they worked a little bit on the balances to health damage and the fighting encounters.
And see, that's interesting, because I also said that it didn't seem fully balanced. Like, I seem to sort of, like, right now I'm not sure how I can beat the final boss, because my only choice is basically strong attack or weak attack, and even if I use strong attack all the time, I can't.
Yeah. Yep.
So I would say they've articulated the feedback well, and they've clearly sort of attempted to make changes based on it.
But partial success?
Yeah, I'm inclined to concede that, perhaps just because I'm sort of trying to talk about this and market, I haven't necessarily sort of like understood from their dialogue that the orcs and whatnot are evil. Perhaps if I was giving it my full attention, it would have come across better. Maybe that's me being a little bit generous.
No, I think, even the confusion over the Lion and the Mouse, there's a lot of the feedback that I think they were giving, and I'm not sure that's the choices. They definitely made good choices, but I think it was only partially successful. So I think that concludes our game for today.
Okay. This is our last one of the batch, so we will see you again for another video.
Absolutely. Take care.
Bye.